Yes, people, it's TWG, the Gym Guna, and I'm joined by Kaya from football.london. How are you, bro?
Good, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome, man. Very, very welcome. I'm going to get right into it. Today's going to be a bit of a Euros prediction preview, and we need the latest on Arsenal. So let's start with the Euros. Straight in, who's going to win it for you?
It's tough to say. I think France are the obvious favourites, but the thing that makes me think against them is that their group is really tough. Obviously, Germany and Portugal in there. I mean, it's not really a sneaky suspicion because they're the number one team in the world. But for me, Belgium, I really like Belgium. I think they're a good side. I think Martinez has got them in playing a good system. That back three, it works for them. They did really well at the World Cup, and they were unlucky not to win it there. And they score a lot of goals. They're a very attacking team, which you don't really get so much of at international level. Teams tend to be a bit more conservative. So I'd have to say Belgium for my favourites.
Okay. Yeah, Belgium are looking like the team the most likely in terms of a full squad. Germany is always up there. I seen a clip of Serge Gnabry's goal. I think was it yesterday or the day before. Hummels played a ball with the outside of his foot from literally centre back right over the top, and then it was just one touch, and he absolutely blasted it in the corner. So Germany's always a shout. France, as you said, but yeah, Belgium it's almost their golden generation, isn't it? They have to do it this year.
This is their last chance for sure. The players are getting to that age. I think De Bruyne is 30, Hazard's nearing 30, if not 30 already. Those kind of players. Mertens, I think, is past 30. So those kind of guys. They've got good young players like Tielemans and etc. But Tonga and Alderweireld, all over 30. So I think, yeah, this is their last chance.
Yeah. So winners and losers, who would you say would be the runner-up? Who do you think is going to be the final between?
I'd have to look at how the draws panned out before I made a commitment on that. I think if France and Belgium are on different sides of the draw, I'll say finals between those two. Yeah.
Okay. Top goal scorer. So there's, this is weird because you have a conversation in terms of who. I have a debate within sort of my friends and family, and even on Twitter actually, between how many actual world class strikers is there. But then if you look at the teams that are in the Euros, there are a few standout strikers.
Yeah.
You've obviously got Benzema. You've got Benzema for the first time in however long gets to represent France. You've got Serge Gnabry is a bit of an outsider. You've got Harry Kane. As much as I don't like him playing for Spurs, you've got Lewandowski, and then you've got Romelu Lukaku. So I don't know who would you say is going to be your top scorer?
That last guy you'd mentioned just there, Romelu Lukaku, he's my number one pick. I think if I've gone for Belgium to win, I'm expecting them to play a lot of games, and so that means they're gonna go far in the tournament. I think they'll score a lot of goals. Like I was saying, I look at their group, which is where those golden boots generally tend to be won and lost. If you score a lot of goals in the group, you generally tend to do quite well. We look at Harry Kane. I think 5 of his 6 goals at the 2018 World Cup were in the group stages. So look at Belgium's group. It's Denmark, Finland, Russia. Not the strongest of teams, maybe. So you'd expect Lukaku to get a few goals against them. So I'm backing him for Golden Boot.
Yeah, no, it's a big shot. It's a big shot. Benzema, I think, has got a lot to prove. It's probably his first in a while, but it's also his last, you'd probably say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Romelu Lukaku seems to be just that striker at the moment. It would have been a different story had obviously Haaland qualified with Denmark, but unfortunately not. Most clean sheets.
Whose defense do I like the most? I'm just trying to look through the teams in front of me here. I think, weirdly, I mean, you wouldn't classify them as a defensive team, really, but I think Spain have got quite a side that can defend as a bit of a unit. I don't think they're going to concede many. I don't really see the Belgians. I mean, they score a lot of goals, but I think maybe when it comes to the knockout stages, they might concede a few. So yeah, I'll stick with my original prediction, Spain. I think their group is Poland. Obviously, Lewandowski might score, but Slovakia, Sweden. The only thing, obviously, no Ramos for Spain in their squad. That might be a big thing, a big factor, but still a very good team. So Spain for me.
Who's Spain's goalkeeper?
It's De Gea or Paul Lopez or Unai Simon, I think. I'd have to double check that. I'm pretty sure it's De Gea. I think maybe Unai Simon, who I mentioned before, has played a few games, but I'd have to double check that before I was able to tell you for certain.
I don't know. You've also got Lloris.
Yeah.
I hate again.
I can't pick a Tottenham player like you. I just can't do
it. Most clean sheets. Who's is Neuer still in goal for Germany?
Neuer will be there. I think Ter Stegen's pulled out with injury, so it's gonna be Neuer. Then Bernd Leno will be his backup, as far as I know. But Spain's goalkeeper, yeah, I think it'll either be De Gea or Unai Simon. So I back one of them to make it. I think Spain have actually got quite a decent defense. I really like Pau Torres, play for Villarreal, so I think they could do all right.
Okay, and then surprise package. So you always get in a tournament that team that sort of shocks everyone. Who's your prediction to be the surprise package of this Euros?
So I mean, I have a bias in the sense that I am half Turkish, but I'm going to say Turkey. And the reason I think this is they've got a very good core of young players, and up front they've got a very good centre forward in Burak Yilmaz, who you may know has been fantastic for Lille this season. What their top scorer for Lille as they've
Liga winner.
Liga, exactly. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who's been at AC Milan, has been fantastic. They've got a solid defensive midfield in Okay Yokuşlu, who's been at West Brom, and then Ozan Tufan, who's played for Fenerbahce. And they've got a good defence as well. So I think Turkey could easily finish second in their group. And then I don't really know what the seeding system's like. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Because third place teams go through and then it all sort of gets a bit messy with this 2014 format. But I think, yeah, maybe slightly biased. I'm going for Turkey as the surprise package.
No, it's a big shout. Looking at this squad, like you said, it's got a few standout players in there. Obviously, Yilmaz, Çalhanoğlu, and Sionchu as well at the back. So, yeah, very decent squad. For me, I'm going to go surprise package. It's a surprise package, but it's not. But I'm going to say Croatia. Very, very well balanced squad. You've got obviously Modric, who's going to dictate the play. You've got Kovacic, who's that engine. Brozovic, who loves a tackle. Box-to-box player. Rebic, who's got a fantastic finish on him. Mandzukic, again, fantastic finish. And then if you look at their squad, it's not really changed much from the last major tournament. So they've still got Vida at the back. So yeah, Croatia, I think, are going to be my pick for the surprise package. And then finally, with the Euros chat, who's going to be the biggest flop? Now, this could be a player or a team. In fact, let's go for both. Who do you think is going to be sort of... let me help you out. I'll go first. Player-wise, I'm going to go Werner, just solely based off Premier League form. He's had a... You could say he's had a good season because obviously he's won the Champions League. But in terms of his actual individual form and play, he's been dreadful. Like the amount of chances he's missed this season, it's been embarrassing.
My Wi-Fi cut out a bit there, but I'm assuming you're talking about Timo Werner just based on the description you've given me there. Yeah, he'd be a good shout for, I think, player maybe to flop. I don't know if you can call it a flop if you're maybe expecting him to be so poor. I think, yeah, he did the same at the 2018 World Cup. Germany create quite a lot of chances, but he's their only real out-and-out centre forward. So he tends to get a lot of those chances, and as we've seen with Chelsea, he tends to miss a lot of those chances. So yeah, he's a good shout. I think team-wise, I think maybe two teams who didn't qualify for the last World Cup in Italy and Holland. I think they could potentially disappoint. They've got quite a nice group, so maybe that'll make it a bit easier for them. But it'll be interesting to see how Portugal get on. I'm looking to see if they do well. Obviously, they've got a tough group in France and Germany. But yeah, the team for me who I think are going to flop, actually, I've mentioned them there. And Werner, you've mentioned as the player, I'll agree with that. But the team for me is Germany. I really think they're going to struggle.
Wow.
I think they'll beat Hungary, who's the fourth team in their group. But if you look at some of the results they've had in recent years since the World Cup, they've not been that impressive. I mean, they've obviously they do well in games where they can score lots of goals, and they've got players who can do that. But I think they've got it in them to have another poor tournament. I don't see that many players in that Germany squad who are different from the 2018 World Cup squad who have maybe dragged them up a level. Obviously, Gnabry, Sane are great players, and you mentioned Gnabry before, but yeah, Germany for me are the team who I'm backing to maybe underwhelm just purely because of that group. It's a very tough group. France and Portugal are two very good sides, so I think they'll struggle.
Yeah. How far do you think England will get?
So England's a tough one to predict. I think if you were basing them on quality, you would say the semi-finals. But if you look at the way the seeding pans out, England, if they win their group, they'll get the third place team from that group containing France, Portugal, and Germany, which will be very difficult. If they're able to get past that, I think it's then most likely the draw will be Spain. Then, if they're able to get past that, I think again the most likely draw is going to be the Netherlands and then potentially Belgium in the final. So it's not going to be easy for England to win the Euros. I think they're capable of beating any of the teams in the competition, but I'll tentatively say semi-finals, but just with that caveat that second round game is going to be very, very tough no matter who they end up playing. That's, of course, if they do top their group.
Okay, so that wraps up the Euros part, the prediction and preview. And whilst I've got you, I have to ask you about Arsenal. What's your take on the Buendia deal?
It's so I wrote an article straight after, which was probably a bit emotional and maybe a bit of heat at the moment, but I thought it was a bad look for Arsenal to really get outbid by Aston Villa for a player they wanted. It's not great. I've sort of started to, with a bit more sort of time to step away from the situation, a bit more clarity of thought. I'm maybe thinking that it makes a bit more sense if Arsenal had a price for the player that they were willing to go up towards and they didn't want to overspend, then fair enough. I think, Arsenal shouldn't try and bankrupt themselves for a player like Emi Buendia. There are other players out there, but I just think that when Arsenal are trying to get back into the Champions League and the Cronkies are talking about ambitions of challenging for elite level trophies, Champions League, Premier League, etc., if you're being outbid by Aston Villa for a player who you really want, that's not a good look. And the fact that Emi Buendia feels that Aston Villa is a more appealing prospect to him, it's not a good look. So maybe it's a sign of how far Arsenal have fallen. But
okay, in terms of any transfers coming in, there's obviously talks of Ruben Neves. Where do you stand with Ruben Neves? And just before you go into that, actually, where can we find the article that you wrote?
Oh, on the Football.London website. It's also on my social media pages at Kaya Kaynak 97, which is on the header there. It's also on Facebook. So yeah, thank you for the free plug. I'd forgotten to plug my own work there, so thanks for that.
No,
yeah.
you're welcome, man. So yeah, Ruben Neves. If I give my thoughts on the Ruben Neves rumor potential deal, I like the idea. I personally believe he is an upgrade on Xhaka. And what's interesting for me is a lot of people are dismissing Ruben Neves as an individual. They're looking at, obviously, Wolves didn't have the best of seasons last season. Yeah, they beat us in one of the games, both of the games.
Yeah, both
of the games. Wow. But Ruben Neves, the season that Wolves came up to the Premier League, if you go back and watch the highlights or just look back at that season, he actually had a better season than Buendia did this season. So if you look back at it, he scored absolute worldies. There was that goal where it just came out the sky, he chested it and absolutely hit it from like 40 yards. Like it just looped straight in the net. He's got all the technical ability for me, and he does play a quicker game than Xhaka. He's 24 years old, so he's got a lot of time to get the best out of him. Even if he was to hit ridiculous heights, it was only 2 seasons ago that Man City wanted him. So I think a lot of it needs to be needs to be looked at, needs to be put into context, really, not just off the last season. Because if we're going to rate players off the last season, there's so many players that had a really bad season. But I'd personally, I'd be happy with him. I wouldn't be happy if he was sort of the player that Arteta or Arsenal believe is going to be the player to take us, levels and levels above. But if he is part of it, and we get Basuma and a few more players in a few different positions, I'm not mad at it at all. He's got Premier League experience. He can shoot. He can pass. And he's got like I said, he's got a lot of scope. He's got a lot of time ahead of him to become a very, very good player.
Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive assessment of Ruben Neves. I can't really disagree with a lot of what you're saying. My only issue with it is maybe the pricing of the deal. So you talk about maybe Arsenal, well, Xhaka is on his way out. He's looking like he's going to be going to Roma. That's between 15 and 20 million. Then Neves coming in is 35 is what they're saying for him. That seems, for a player who maybe isn't a massive upgrade on Granit Xhaka, I think he's a good player, and I think a lot of the criticism that's come his way is a little bit harsh. And I think it's possible. Social media is a bit of a weird place, but it's possible to think that Granit Xhaka and Ruben Neves are both good players without necessarily thinking that one would be catastrophic for the Arsenal midfield. And maybe that gets a bit lost on social media sometimes. But I'd say that I think Ruben Neves is maybe just slightly a bit of a sideways step. So I think he's as good as Xhaka, if not slightly better. But like you were saying, I don't think he's the next step up to sort of top midfield. I think he can be maybe under the right tutelage. I think Nuno's tactics at Wolves this season were quite defensive, especially when Raul Jimenez got injured. So perhaps with a more expansive manager, he'd be able to do a bit more going forward. But at the same time, we've not really seen him in a possession-based team. Wolves are a good side, but they don't really like to play with the ball and dominate the ball that much. They like to sit with their 5-3-2 and defend, and then they hit people on the counter attack with your likes of Pedro Neto, Adama Traore, etc. So I'd say based on that I think Neves is a good signing, but to pay what is essentially, I guess, a 15, 20 million net spend to upgrade on a similar player, I'm not sure it's quite that much of an upgrade. But I think Neves would be a smart investment. He's only 24. Very easily forgotten because he's been around for so long. He's I think captain Porto age 17, which is something crazy. So he's still young. He'll get better. So I don't think he's a bad signing. I think if Arsenal do get him, he'd be a smart piece of business. The only issue is maybe the fee, but that's always going to be the case in modern football. You're always end up spending a lot of money to get players that you really want.
Yeah, like you said, he's a player who can shine, but he's not sort of. I wouldn't like I just said, and like you just said, he's not the player to take Arsenal to the next level on his own. Moving on to other rumours and other players that are being linked with Arsenal. One interesting one for me personally was Alexander Isak. What's the latest you can tell us on that?
I've not heard anything on Alexander Isak myself. I know that Arsenal are planning to offer a 1-year contract extension to Alex Lacazette. I don't know if they've offered that to him yet or if those contract talks have started. So I don't know what the deal is there. I'd imagine if Lacazette accepts that extension, then Arsenal won't be in the market for a striker this summer, given that Balogun's there, Martinelli's there, Aubameyang's there, and then of course Lacazette would be there. Maybe if Lacazette decides to leave, they'll be in the market for a striker. The thing I would say about that is I'd imagine, I don't know what sort of price is being quoted for Isak, but I'd imagine that would be relatively high, and centre forward is quite low on Arsenal's list of priorities, given they've got Aubameyang under contract, they've got Balogun signed for till 2025. Martinelli is also on a long-term contract, so I don't think maybe Arsenal will be willing to spend so much money on a centre forward. I think there's other areas in the squad that they'll be looking to improve. Your number 10s, your centre midfields, left back, right back, and of course, your goalkeeper as well.
With there seems that there's going to be that one transfer saga. There always is with Arsenal, and at the moment it seems to be Yves Bissouma. What is the latest on that? What is Arsenal? Are Arsenal actively doing anything, or is it just all paper talk and rumours at the moment?
It's not just paper talk and rumours. I think Bissouma definitely wants to come, and he's had conversations with his agent about that. His agent is the same as Nicola Pepe, and we saw after that game against Brighton on the final day of the season that those two are quite close. He's also close with Gabriel from when they played at Lille together. So there's a connection there. And Bissouma's an Arsenal fan, which always helps if you're trying to get a deal over the line. It's not the be all and end all, but it could be helpful. Again, price might play into it. So Brighton want between 30 and 35 million. Arsenal will probably try and get something less than that if they can. But I think it's a case of if Arsenal really want to make that deal happen, they'll be able to get it over the line. Reportedly, Liverpool are also interested. But I think Bissouma does like Arsenal, and he sees that maybe he'll be able to play more regularly than he would perhaps at Liverpool. So there's definitely something in the deal. I don't know if Arsenal have actually made any moves to sign Bissouma yet. As far as I'm aware at the minute, they haven't. But they have been tracking him. He's a player they've been looking at alongside Sander Berge from Sheffield United. So there's plenty of players they're looking at in that central midfield role. We spoke about Ruben Neves as well. It's an area that they've identified they need to improve, not just for quality, but also in terms of sheer numbers. You know, Danny Ceballos has gone. Granit Xhaka looks like he's going to leave. Joe Willock could leave. Ainsley Maitland-Niles could leave. Mohamed El Neni could leave. So we don't really know what's going to happen. As the only central midfielder in the Arsenal squad who will definitely be there next season at the minute is Thomas Partey. So they'll definitely need lots more players. Admittedly, fewer competitions, so less things to worry about, but they'll need central midfielders. So I assume they'll be in the market for a player like a Bissouma.
Right then, I think that is that really. There's not, the window has only just opened today officially. There's lots of obviously time for Arsenal to make something happen. Obviously, it still remains to be seen whether they will or not. But just before you go, I just want to do a quick fire. So whichever answer you think of first, just go with that.
Okay.
Obviously, Bellerin's out. Well, is going to be out the door, it seems, whether it's Villarreal, Sevilla, or even Atletico. Which of the two, Trippier or Mazraoui?
As in, which would I like, or which? Oh, Mazraoui, yeah, Mazraoui.
If we only signed one out of the two, Bissouma or Neves?
Bissouma.
Odegaard or Awa?
Odegaard.
If you could pick a statement signing for Arsenal, let's say Daniel Ek somehow gets this deal, gets his Arsenal, and is ready to spend whatever on whichever player. Who's the statement signing for you?
Jack Grealish.
Out of three, Guendouzi, Torreira, or El Nene, which would you keep?
Torreira.
Do you think Saliba will be at the club, or we will get a new centre back?
I think he'll stay. I'd like him to stay, and he's going to get a chance in pre-season. So if he doesn't stay, I think that really speaks volumes to Arteta's management. I think that'll be a real black mark against Mikel Arteta's name, because Arsenal spent a lot of money on him, and then to go and spend even more money on a new centre back for me would be foolish.
Yeah. Sell or keep Lacazette?
Keep for one more season.
Kaya, let me down, man. You let me down.
Sorry, I know you're not a fan.
Zaha, yes or no?
No.
Arteta in or Arteta out?
Arteta in.
And Edu in or Edu out?
Ooh, that's tougher. Can you ask me that again in September? And I'll see how I feel. I think Edu's actually done quite a decent bit of job. He's done quite a decent job in his role as technical director so far. There's been a lot of good signings, a lot of good work in getting the players out of the club. Maybe he could have avoided signing Willian. I think that will always be a black mark against his name. And there's always going to be questions about him in terms of some of the deals he's done. But I think on balance, Edu in until the end of this window, and then we'll see how we go.
And finally, every Arsenal fan's favourite, Kroenke in or Kroenke out?
Kroenke out.
Kaya, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you want to check out Kaya's work, his Twitter handle's on screen, as you can see. And he writes articles for football.london or football_London on Twitter. So go check him out. Please like and comment below and subscribe to the channel. Stay strong and enjoy the Euros.